balloons that were flying. So now the child was simply attracted towards those rainbow glory and the silken colors. And now he was overwhelming that desire. He was really much excited. He wanted those balloons. But he knew that if he would not tell the parents to let him get a balloon, the parents would tell that now he is big enough and he should not play with those sort of balloons, and such toys are really very old. So then he didn't ask for anything and he just walked away from there. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such chorus music as the snake charmer played, he proceeded farther. So, this is the next incident which he is sharing, that he met a snake charmer and he was playing a flute. So, the snake which coiled itself in a basket. Now, the child went towards that snake charmer, but he knew that his parents had told no, not to listen to that sort of music which the snake charmer was playing. So he just moved away from there. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout. Please, father, mother. So the roundabout is a merry-go-round, and it was in a full swing. All the people were in a whirling motion, and everybody were having a dizzy laughter. Now the child also watched that thing intently, and now at this time he made a bold request and he told that please allow me to go. I also want to go to the roundabout. He requested his parents to give him permission. There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. Ahead of him, he turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. So now when the child turned behind at that time, he realized that his parents were not there. So there was no reply from either of the parents. They might have moved ahead. And because of this thing, he looked each and everywhere, but it was not possible for him to search. And there was no sign. A full deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear, Mother, Father. Tears rolled down his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Panic-stricken, he ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither, in all the directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he wailed. His yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. Now what happened when he saw that there was no sign of his parents? He was full. Now he was overwhelmed with the emotions and he started crying, and he was having a dry throat because he started crying. And then he called out, Mother and Father. Tears started rolling down his eyes. He was really very panicked, and he ran at the one side of the street and then he went to the other side, and he was really very worried about from where he could get his parents. And at that time duration, the boy was wearing a yellow turban which came untied, and his clothes have become really very muddy. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, He stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. At little distances on a green grass he could see, through his filmy eyes, men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among those people who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. Now, what happened? He started sobbing, and after a certain time duration, he saw that the green grass he could see so many men and women talking, laughing, and there were patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among those people. And they all were laughing and talking, but now he was really very worried to find his parents. He ran quickly again, this time to a shireen to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space where he was congested with men, but he ran through people's leg, his little sob lingering. Mother, father. Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. He might have been trampled underfoot. He had not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice. Mother, father. A man in a shrugging crowd here heard his cry, and stopping with great difficulty, lifted him in his arms. So now what happened? He quickly ran. There was a group standing at the shireen, and everyone were standing, and there was very little space, but somehow the child managed to move between the feet of the people, and everybody, the men were jostling at each other. They were really very heavy men, and moreover to that, their eyes were very murderous, and they were having hefty shoulders. So the child struggled a lot, but he somehow managed to move ahead, and when he went down, he shouted at his highest pitch of voice, and he said, Father, mother. And over there a man was standing in the crowd, and he heard the child's cry, and he stopped him with great difficulty and tried to lift him up in his arms. How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? The man asked as he stirred clear of the mass. The child wept more bitterly than ever now, and only cried, I want my mother, I want my father. So that man lifted the child, and he asked that, how did you get over here? How have you reached over here? And whose baby are you? Where are your parents? And this made the child even cry more bitterly. And he told that, I want my mother, I want my father. The man tried to soothe him by taking him to a roundabout. Will you have a ride on the horse? He gently asked as he approached the ring. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs, and he only shouted, I want my mother, I want my father. Now, as the child was crying really badly, the man took him to the roundabout, and he told that, would you like to ride on a horse? But the child almost shouted in a shrill and sobbed and said that he only wanted his mother and father. Dear students, you can see the picture over here of the fair, and you can see over here in the middle that little child is crying, and the man is asking if he wanted to go anywhere. The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to swaying cobra. Listen to that nice music, child, he pleaded. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double pitched strain, I want my mother, I want my father. So now that gentleman told that, look, the snake charmer is playing such a nice flute, listen to it. But he shut down his ears and he shouted that he wanted his parents. The men took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. Would you like a rainbow colored balloon? He persuasively asked. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed. I want my mother, I want my father. So now this good hearted gentleman asked him that was he willing to get a rainbow colored balloon, and the child eventually wanted also at initial stage, but just now he was not wanting anything. He didn't want anything. Why? Because just now he only wanted one thing, and that was the parents. So he turned away his eyes and he told that no, I don't want any sort of balloons, I want my parents back. The men, still trying to make the lost child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller said, look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put around your neck? Okay, now you can see that in the second incident, when the child was entering the fair, at that time he wished to have those gulmohar garland, and now this gentleman was offering that garland, but now the child was refusing, that he didn't want that garland. The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob, I want my mother, I want my father. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by the gift of sweets, the men took him to counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? He asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. So when he was entering the fair the first time, he wished and he was thinking that if his parents could buy him the sweet, and his favorite sweet was burfi. This gentleman took him over to the sweet shop and he told that which sweet would you like to have, and now even the child turned his face from the sweet shop and he only started crying. And just now he didn't want any sort of sweets or gulmohar garland or balloons or whereabouts. He only wanted one thing, and that was his mother and father. So this is the chapter written by Mulkaraj Anand. I hope, dear students, that you all have understood the chapter. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.